Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
Welcome to Reflect, one of the world's first 100% AI-generated podcasts. We're your hosts, here to dive deep into the stuff that makes you think. Damn, I wish I knew that before I wasted all those hours scrolling cat memes. Today's deep dive, Gen Z and the freaking workplace.
Ah, yes, the generation that's simultaneously accused of being lazy and overachieving. It's a fascinating paradox.
It really is. We've got reports, articles, even first-hand accounts that paint a picture that's equal parts hilarious, terrifying. And wait, is that me they're talking about? Our mission today is to cut through the BS and help you figure out what the hell's going on with Gen Z at work and, more importantly, what it means for the rest of us.
Because, let's be honest, even if you aren't Gen Z, their impact is going to be felt, for better or worse.
Right on. So before we get into the juicy stuff about how Gen Z is supposedly reshaping work culture, let's start with what seems to be stressing them the hell out. The American Psychological Association's Stress in America report basically drops a truth bomb. Gen Z and younger millennials are the most stressed out generation.
It's not even close. The report shows 18 to 34-year-olds rating their stress levels at an average of 6 out of 10, compared to a 3.4 for those 65 and older. So yeah, there's a significant difference there.
Okay, so what's got them all knotted up? Surprise, surprise. It's money. A whopping 67% of 18 to 34-year-olds said they feel consumed by financial worries, compared to only 13% of those 65 and older. I mean, think about it. This generation has been hit with a trifecta of crap: COVID, inflation that's making avocados a luxury item, and an economic landscape that looks like a freaking roller coaster designed by a sadist.
You have to consider the context, too. This isn't just about complaining about student loans. Many of them entered the workforce during or right after a global pandemic. They're watching the cost of living skyrocket, while wages stagnate. It's a perfect storm of financial anxiety.
And to make matters worse, they're the loneliest generation, which just adds fuel to the stress fire. It's like you're drowning in debt and existential dread, and you don't even have a buddy to share a beer and a rant with.
Social isolation is a real issue, and it's particularly concerning for Gen Z, given that strong social connections are crucial for managing stress. It's a vicious cycle.
All right, so we've established that Gen Z is stressed to the max. But here's where things get really interesting. This anxiety isn't just confined to their personal lives, it's bleeding into the workplace.
Yeah.
And causing a whole lot of friction.
It's this clash of expectations that's really fascinating. The CNBC video, Gen Z is Reshaping the Future of Work. Here's how Latest dives into this head-on, and it doesn't hold back.
Oh, it's juicy. We're talking accusations of Gen Z being lazy, entitled, and having the attention span of a goldfish on espresso. One employer in the video straight up said, and I quote, "They tend to be entitled. They tend to not be loyal." Damn.
It's important to note that the video also includes perspectives from Gen Z workers who push back against those stereotypes.
Oh, absolutely. They're like, hold up, we're not lazy. We just don't want to spend our lives grinding away for some soul-sucking corporation that doesn't give a damn about us or the planet. One Gen Z worker in the video said, "I don't think any of us want to work 100 hours a week. To have no piece of the pie, to work for someone you don't respect, to do something that you don't believe in."
Which I think highlights a critical point. This isn't just about laziness or entitlement. It's about a fundamental shift in values. Gen Z is coming into the workforce with a different set of priorities. And frankly, I think it's a much-needed wake-up call.
Okay, so preach. What are these magical Gen Z values that are freaking out all the old-school bosses?
Well, the video highlights a few key themes that we hear a lot about. Work-life balance, a sense of purpose in their work, transparency from their employers, and companies that actually align with their values. This isn't about getting a participation trophy for showing up. It's about having a life outside of work and feeling like their job actually contributes to something meaningful.
And you know what? I actually think that makes a lot of sense. Who wants to work for a company that's actively destroying the environment or treating its employees like crap? It's not exactly a recipe for job satisfaction.
It's not. And what's interesting is that companies are starting to adapt. because they realize that to attract and retain top talent, they have to change. LinkedIn even added a feature that allows job seekers to filter companies based on their values.
Which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like finally acknowledging that work isn't just about making money. It's about being part of something that aligns with your beliefs. But hold up. It's not all sunshine and roses. This whole Gen Z approach to work thing comes with its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
And some of it is, well, kind of messy.
Their anxiety and dependence on technology definitely create unique hurdles in the workplace.
Like for real. There's a story in the Social Anxiety and Generation Z blog post about a young teacher named Kate, who has social anxiety and ADHD. She was so terrified of calling pharmacies to fill her prescription, even though she needed the medication to function at work, that she avoided it for months. She ended up having to take a leave of absence because her anxiety got so bad.
That's a heartbreaking example of how these issues can have a real impact on people's lives and their careers. And it ties into what Simon Sinek talks about in his video, the challenge with Gen Z.
Ah, yes, Simon Sinek, the guy who loves talking about millennials eating avocado toast. What's he got to say about Gen Z?
Well, he points out that many Gen Z workers struggle with confrontation and asking for what they need. They're also quick to quit rather than address issues head on, which can be incredibly frustrating for employers.
So they're anxious, tech-dependent, and avoid confrontation like it's the plague. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. Does Sinek offer any solutions to this hot mess?
He does. He emphasizes the importance of training young people in what he calls human skills. Things like how to have difficult conversations, give and receive feedback, and most importantly, ask for help.
Which, let's be honest, are skills that a lot of us, regardless of age, could probably use some work on.
Absolutely. And Sinek's point is that we need to equip Gen Z with these tools instead of just writing them off as lazy or entitled. It's about creating a work environment where it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for support.
Okay, so we've got a generation that wants meaning in their work, but struggles to communicate and ask for what they need, and they're freaking out the older generations who are used to a different way of doing things. It's a lot to unpack.
It is, and it raises a critical question. How do we navigate a multi-generational workforce with such drastically different needs and expectations?
Yeah, how do we get Gen X millennials and the boomers to play nice with Gen Z?
Yeah.
Without everyone wanting to chuck their laptops out the window. It seems impossible.
It's definitely a challenge. But the McKinsey article, What is Gen Z?, offers some interesting insights into how companies can create a more inclusive and productive environment for everyone.
Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with the wisdom.
One key takeaway is the need for what they call a return of the Renaissance figure, individuals with a wide range of skills and knowledge.
Wait, so we're talking about like Da Vinci, but with a laptop and a TikTok account?
Essentially, yes. The idea is that we need to move away from the hyper-specialization that's been the norm for so long and encourage people to develop skills in multiple areas. Think digital technology, analytics, business management, even creative thinking.
So basically, we need to become Swiss Army knives of the workplace. That's a tall order.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting. Imagine a workforce that's adaptable, well-rounded, and constantly learning.
That actually sounds pretty badass. But let's get real for a second. We've been talking about Gen Z's big dreams and anxieties. But what about the cold, hard cash?
Right. The Deloitte article, Understanding Generation Z in the Workplace, points out that while salary might not be Gen Z's top priority, it's still damn important, especially given their financial anxieties.
I mean, duh, you can't exactly pay rent with good vibes and purpose.
Yeah, exactly. There's this interesting tension between their idealism and their pragmatic need for financial stability. And it's something that employers need to understand. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's about finding a balance.
Okay, so let's recap what we've learned so far. Gen Z is a bunch of anxious, tech-savvy, purpose-driven folks who are shaking up the workplace with their values and their, let's say, unique communication styles.
They're forcing us to rethink traditional ideas about work, leadership, and even what it means to have a successful career.
There's a lot to process. But don't worry, we're just getting started.
In part 2, we'll delve deeper into what this all means for the future of work.
So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a wild ride.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Gen Z and the workplace.
Okay, so we just spent the last segment unpacking all the ways Gen Z is basically turning the work world upside down. Now, let's talk solutions. How do we bridge this generational gap? Because, let's be real, Gen Z isn't going anywhere. They're the future workforce, whether we like it or not.
Exactly. And ignoring their needs and perspectives is a recipe for disaster. Companies that fail to adapt are going to get left behind, plain and simple.
Oh, so what's the magic formula? Is it all ping-pong tables and kombucha on tap?
I wish it were that simple. It's about creating a culture of empathy and understanding, which honestly is something we could all use a little more of these days.
Preach. But how do we actually do that? I mean, it's one thing to say be more empathetic. It's another thing to actually, do it.
It starts with recognizing that Gen Z's values aren't some sign of weakness or entitlement. They're a reflection of the world they've grown up in, a world that's been rocked by economic downturns, social unrest, and a climate crisis that's like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, it's not exactly a walk in the park being a young person these days.
Right.
So how do we meet them where they are?
Communication is key. And I don't mean trying to be all hip and trendy on TikTok. It's about being open to hearing their perspectives and understanding their concerns.
So basically actually listening to what they have to say.
Oh.
Instead of just dismissing them as whiny snowflakes.
Pretty much. Gen Z workers need to feel like their voices are heard and that their opinions matter. They want to be part of the solution, not just told what to do.
And that means being willing to have some tough conversations, right?
Absolutely. Conflict is inevitable, especially when you have multiple generations with different communication styles. But instead of avoiding conflict, we need to learn how to engage in it constructively. And this is where those human skills that Simon Sinek was talking about come into play.
Right, the whole being a decent human being thing. So teaching people how to communicate effectively, give and receive feedback, and address conflict in a healthy way.
Exactly. It's not just about Gen Z either. These are skills that benefit everyone in the workplace. It's about creating a more collaborative and respectful environment.
Okay, so we've got communication down. What else is on the checklist for creating a Gen Z-friendly workplace?
Mental health support is crucial. We can't just expect them to suck it up and deal with their anxiety on their own. Companies need to create a culture where it's okay to talk about mental health and seek help when needed. That means offering resources like employee assistance programs and mental health days.
And maybe like not scheduling back-to-back-to-back meetings that make everyone want to scream into the void.
That too. It's about recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health. Burnout is a real thing, and it costs companies a lot of money in lost productivity and employee turnover.
All right, so we've got communication, mental health support, and a willingness to embrace Gen Z's values. What else?
I think mentorship is crucial. Pairing Gen Z workers with experienced mentors from other generations can create valuable learning opportunities and help bridge the generational divide.
Like a cross-generational buddy system. I kind of like that.
It's about sharing knowledge and perspectives. Gen Z can learn from the experience of older generations, and older generations can gain fresh insights from Gen Z's perspective. It's a win-win.
Plus, it's a chance for boomers to finally learn what all those weird slang words mean.
I'm not sure that's a top priority, but sure.
Okay, so mentorship is good, but let's be real. Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes commitment from both employers and employees.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street. Companies need to be willing to adapt and evolve. And Gen Z workers need to be proactive in communicating their needs and advocating for change. It's about working together to create a better work environment for everyone.
And let's not forget about the individual responsibility we all have to not be jerks to each other. Like maybe don't be a condescending ass to your younger colleagues just because they don't know how to use a fax machine.
Sound advice. Kindness and respect go a long way.
Okay, so to wrap up this part of our deep dive, it sounds like the key to navigating the Gen Z workforce is a mix of empathy, communication, and a willingness to embrace change.
I think that's a good summary. It's about creating a workplace culture that values diversity, inclusivity, and well-being.
But the big question remains, what does all of this mean for the future of work? Will we all be working remotely in our pajamas, attending meetings via hologram, and getting paid in cryptocurrency?
That's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We spent the last 2 segments dissecting this whole Gen Z and the workplace phenomenon, and honestly, it's enough to make your head spin.
It is a lot to take in, especially for those of us who didn't grow up with the internet in our pockets.
No kidding. It's like their brains are wired differently, which I guess makes sense considering they've been swiping and tapping since they were in diapers. So let's talk about the future. What does a Gen Z-shaped world of work actually look like? Will we all be working from virtual reality offices on Mars? Will robots steal all our jobs? Hit me with the predictions.
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can say is that the workplace is already changing at warp speed, and Gen Z is definitely pushing the accelerator.
Okay, so what are the big changes we can expect to see?
For starters, the traditional 9-to-5 office job is going the way of the dinosaurs. Remote work, flexible schedules, and the gig economy are here to stay.
Which, honestly, is a mixed bag. I mean,
Yeah.
who wants to be
Bound.
chained to a desk all day?
Yeah.
But working from home in your pajamas can get old pretty fast.
It definitely has its pros and cons. On the one hand, you have more freedom and flexibility. But on the other hand, it can be tough to maintain boundaries between work and life. And it can get isolating.
Right. You start to miss those water cooler conversations, even if they were mostly just complaints about the coffee.
Exactly. So the challenge for companies is to figure out how to create a work environment that supports both productivity, A&D, well-being, regardless of location.
Got it. So remote work is in. But what about automation? Are robots coming to steal all our jobs?
Automation is definitely changing the landscape of work. Some jobs will inevitably be displaced, but other jobs will be created.
So it's not just a doom and gloom scenario where robots take over everything.
Not necessarily. It's more about a shift in the types of skills that are in demand. The key is to be adaptable and willing to learn new things. Which brings us back to that Renaissance figure concept that McKinsey talked about.
Ah, yes. The Da Vinci of the digital age. So we need to be multi-talented, adaptable, and ready to learn new things constantly.
Lifelong learning is essential in a world that's changing so rapidly. The skills you have today might be obsolete tomorrow, so you need to constantly be evolving and upgrading your skill set.
Man, it's like we're all back in school again, except this time the tests are about surviving in a robot-powered world.
It's a bit dramatic, but there's some truth to that. The ability to learn, adapt, and think critically is going to be more valuable than ever.
Okay, so remote work,
Mm-hmm.
automation, and lifelong learning are the big trends. What else is on the horizon?
I think we'll see a greater emphasis on purpose-driven work. Gen Z is really raising the bar in terms of their expectations for employers. They don't just want a paycheck, they want to work for companies that align with their values and are making a positive impact on the world.
So no more working for evil corporations that pollute the planet and exploit workers.
Ideally, no. Companies that want to attract and retain top talent need to demonstrate a commitment to sustainability, social responsibility, and ethical practices. It's not just about making a profit, it's about making a difference.
Okay, so the future of work is looking pretty different. It's remote, it's automated, it's purpose-driven, and it requires constant learning. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is, but I think it's also exciting. We have the opportunity to create a work world that is more equitable, sustainable, and fulfilling.
So to wrap up this deep dive, what advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to navigate this crazy new world of work?
Don't panic. Change is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be scary. Embrace the opportunity to learn new skills, explore different career paths, and find work that aligns with your values.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Mentorship, networking, and continuous learning are essential for thriving in this ever-evolving work world.
Well said. And remember, the future of work is not set in stone. We all have a role to play in shaping it, so let's get out there and create a work world that works for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the world of Gen Z and the future of work. Until next time, stay curious, stay adaptable,